Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new episode of Skylanders Week 2 here on the channel. Man, it has been a really long week, hasn't it? But all jokes aside, this video has been delayed until today, where I finally finalised it, which is why you're seeing the video before you. That's how logic would dictate in this situation. So as always, we're going to be going through all of the levels in Skylanders Imaginators, including Adventure Pack levels, which is actually a grand majority of the game because there's 10 base levels for us to rank alongside 5 Adventure Pack levels, and all of the elemental realms are being classed as levels to pit against one another within the ranking, mind you. So that makes for a combined total of 25 levels, and once again the list is based on the personal appeal the level has to me, or on a personal scale that is, because sometimes a level would appeal more to my sense of opinions than somebody else's, and that is to be taken into account, as well as just the level's quality overall when it comes down to its visuals, its design, its difficulties. So everything that goes into making levels awesome, whether or not a level is better at doing those things than other levels, will determine where they fall in ranking. But I clearly have blabbered on long enough. We've waited forever for this penultimate video of Skylanders Week 2, so without further ado, let's roll that intro and get straight into it. Almost universally acknowledged as one of the worst Skylanders levels, we have the Magic Realm all the way at the bottom of this ranking. The level is pain. If I were to torture someone for information, I'd force them to play this level on loop because it's just that terrible. The design is poor, with no indication as to how to even begin to tackle the puzzles. It's simple corridor layout with things blocking your path, demanding you to bring certain objects to the correct pedestals. Not knowing what each pedestal does wastes your time, as you can make a move which ultimately leads to nothing. Making the level, I should say, incredibly slow paced. On top of that, the puzzle is long, tedious, and extremely forgettable, meaning that even upon replaying the level, you still feel that sense of dullness because you can't remember how the puzzle is supposed to be played, restarting the loop of frustration all over again. The colours are purple, purple, and more purple. Without contrasting colours, there is nothing visually interesting to gaze upon, making the level that much more boring and even duller. Enemies are also incredibly cheap here, as projectiles these bottles throw at you tend to hone in on you, like your Skylander is magnetic or some shit like that, and even when you've dodged the attack, it can still hit you, and dying results in you needing to play the level all over again for the sake of the 3-star objectives, and that is the last thing you want to be doing. I don't just hate this level, I despise this level with every fibre of my being, but coming pretty close to Magic Realm on my scale of absolute hatred is Chaos's Lair. Talk about an anticlimactic way to end the game. Clearly, 5 years later, they learned nothing from Spyro's Adventure because this level possesses the exact same flaws. It has long and straight corridors, which is a boring layout, and it makes collectibles very easy to find, meaning you never really feel rewarded for completing the objectives of this level because it's so insultingly easy. There is a game you play against Chaos which is poorly implemented, since Chaos's score increases by what Jetpack's clones do, and you have no control over that, which makes the game feel cheap, and the outcome of the game doesn't even change anything. So in the end, you're not even motivated to play it, since there is no reward for winning, and no punishment for losing, making it entirely pointless. The final Chaos boss is also the most underwhelming in the entire franchise. It has no creativity, much like Chaos Doomlanders themselves, and all you do is actually fight those Chaos Doomlanders and jump over Chaos's shockwaves whenever he randomly appears. This lack of creativity brings the game to a really anticlimactic close, making you lose all your sense of reward when finally beating the game. The boss fight is just straight up terrible, and it's as terrible as the level leading up to it. The only bright side is the Battle Gong, which does feel like an absolute challenge, which makes it easily the most rewarding and adrenaline fueled section of the entire level. Number 23 is going to be Cradle of Creation. As the first level in this game, it does fulfill upon its purpose, as it does exactly what it needs to without doing anything inherently wrong. You learn about the mechanics, and this level doesn't constantly break up the gameplay with unnecessary dialogue sequences, which is fantastic, but the level is also pretty fast paced and still lives up to its purpose, so what exactly is there to hate about it? It's mostly the lack of originality. There is nothing in this level to pull you in, making it very forgettable, and you don't really care for it. The visuals are bland, the theming is bland, and when compared to other levels in this game, the basicness and lack of originality really stands out, and not in a good way. The first level of the game should entice you to play it further. After this level, I'm more tempted to turn off the game, more so than anything else. But luckily, later levels in the game, such as Tech Realm, are much better. That's right, our number 22 is dedicated to the Tech Realm, where apparently Imaginators aren't even enough for this game. In a game where you can literally design your own Skylander, it's pretty underwhelming to design a toy with only 27 different outcomes, as you have 3 heads, 3 chests, and 3 legs to choose from, and any combination of the 3 making 27. The need for this level's existence isn't really there, and its unnecessary feeling makes the entire level quite forgettable. Like all the other realms, it's visually quite boring, as you only have one theme and one colour palette to explore at any one given time, and the lack of contrast creates a lack of interesting visuals to invest you further into the level. There's only one short combat sequence in the entire level, making this entire level far too easy, and it doesn't even feel short or fast paced, as pushing the toys can get tedious at times. The ending minigame is also dull and anticlimactic. To be successful, all you need to do is mash buttons. This is not how you end off the level on a high note. It's actually quite the opposite. The biggest insult is having to do this level 27 times if you want to design every possible toy combination, and it gets dull after your first playthrough, let alone the other 26. It's just a poorly designed level, so I can't in good conscience put this level anywhere above number 22 on my ranking. But number 21 is going to be Fizzland. It's a typical theme in Imaginators to go back to previous concepts and either make the same mistakes as the first time round or butcher something that was good to begin with, and Fizzland here is the former. The world switching mechanic is basic and it makes the level forgettable because the gimmick was used to much greater effect in previous levels. The world is very similar aesthetically, giving you very little motivation to actually switch worlds. Besides solving the obvious puzzles, all you need to do for the switch mechanic is push blocks, platforms, bottle pushing, lock puzzles and doorways, all of which you aren't left to discover for yourself. There are blatant tutorials which really do hammer it home how abundantly obvious these puzzles are, and they're just repeated, they're not expanded upon, it's the same thing done over and over again to the exact same effect. So why even bother with this mechanic if you're not going to expand upon it throughout the entirety of the level? It's as basic in the end as it was at the beginning. And there's also the vacuuming sections where you got to pick up different colour globules, which is strange and takes you off guard, and as the rest of the level leading up to this point needs to be stranger in order for this to feel more fitting and in tune with what we've seen up to this point, and that is what makes this section just so out of left field. I like how the level is an expression of Pop Fizz's personality, and the level design and visuals are certainly a lot more enticing than what we've seen so far on this list. But the level needs to be far less basic and more consistent in its pacing in order to stand out amongst this ranking and in order for it to actually be fun. Number 20 is going to be the Light Realm, a level with basic puzzle solving and exploration. It's pretty easy to find all the collectibles in here first try, but if you don't, you need to go through the annoying and tedious process all over again with no sense of immersion, as you're too busy left wanting to strangle the ever-living life force out of these NPCs to even worry about thinking about anything else. I do think the level design is better than levels preceding this one on the ranking, however. The push block puzzles from all the different areas of the level come together nicely in a very satisfying manner, so this collectible in particular is a really rewarding one, as the entire level is left to really flow, and the theming always fits. It expands upon what we saw previously to create a nice sense of progression. I recommend playing this level on mute to have a nicer experience with it. Then you don't have to deal with the annoying and tedious NPCs who can't seem to shut up. Next up at number 19 is the Griffin Park Observatory. This level is the bane of my existence for any completionist, as the objectives for this level are downright evil. You can get through the level collecting all collectibles, but also missing certain areas to be found, resulting in a failure of that particular objective for the stars. and with no collectibles in the utmost hardest areas to find, it makes these parts easy to skip by accident. There is no indication that these are hidden areas that even count towards the objectives. Therefore, even when you know they exist, it's very easy to skip past them with no collectibles in those areas to be found. It's not even all that rewarding when you do find these absurd areas because of the lack of rewards found inside. All you get is a little gold and an objective checked off. This level does look gorgeous, and it's nice that this is the closest we're ever going to get to an open world Skylanders game. You tackle each area in whichever order you please. Each one is explorable and offers up different objectives and blocked pathways where you need to find the right tool and backtrack to advance through those sections. It certainly is clever level design. It's just evil how it hides areas that need to be discovered and gives you no hints whatsoever as to where they can be found. You can't be expected to find all of this stuff without a guide. The design is ludicrous, unfair, and it's what makes the entire level more frustrating than fun, which is a shame because the premise has some real potential here, and yet it just falls short, which is why Griffin Park Observatory gets number 19 on the ranking. Then coming in at number 18 is Mushroom River. Whilst you find yourself drifting down the river, it is slightly harder to dodge barrels when you're automatically moving forward, and this is one of a few cases of levels in Skylanders taking advantage of a set pace brought about by needing to wait for rafts. Having to jump from raft to raft and platform and back again is pretty tense and fast paced, but that's directly contrasted with the controlled slow pace of those same rafts, and the inconsistent pacing makes these sections feel slower by comparison's sakes. And I must say, this level does have one thing going for it, and that is the beauty behind it, because the level concept is actually pretty cool, even if it is a little bland and generic in execution. The main problem to this level is that it has no oomph to make it really stand out. As such, it kind of meshes in with every other level in this game, and it's forgotten about quite quickly. But then at number 17 I have Enchanted Elven Forest. This entire level feels janky and unfinished, with terrible hitboxes for the fire and trampolines, where half of the time what you intend to do isn't actually what winds up happening. The entire level just feels randomly stitched together. The grind sections don't even help because it's like they were designed all as independent sections and then they had no idea how to join them up in the end, so they over-relied on said grind sections. These sections get boring and bring the pacing down to an absolute crawl, as there is nothing that stands out about them. A burning forest isn't even a unique level theme, it's something that's been done before in Skylanders, decreasing the memorability of this level as soon as you start to compare it to other superior levels of its nature. I will admit I do like the spike sections and the cute little minigame divergence. They feel fitting and offer you a way to break off from the constant gameplay loop. So the level does have a fresh feeling throughout it. It's just a shame these sections weren't stitched together very well and the level simply isn't creative enough to expand upon the ideas of a burning forest. Rather, it instead just enacts upon the exact same execution we've seen before already, and it feels like an inferior level because of it. Coming in at number 16 is the Dark Realm. This level is dark, it's fitting for its elemental theming, but it means the visuals are dull as there are no colours to stand out and contrast each other. In fact, there just are no colours or background details to absorb, period. Luckily they made the rolling ball mechanic actually tolerable for once, as you seem more in control of it than you usually do. But this is purely because it has less room to move around and therefore less opportunity to get out of control, because what we have here are the same unimaginative corridor sequences that we've seen done time and time again with the level design already. Exploration in this level is therefore minimal and not very rewarding. However, the lack of sight does create a foreboding atmosphere, and tensions rise as you traverse it, fearful of the enemies that lurk in the unknown. The level sets out its main concept and sticks to it throughout, even expanding upon its base ideas as you progress through the level, which is very satisfying for the sense of progression that you feel. All these factors lead to the Dark Realm ultimately becoming a pretty mixed bag, which is why it's here at number 16. Number 15 on the other hand is going to be for Undead Realm. This level changes enough of its key elements to notice when you replay the level. It's not exactly like you feel as though you're exploring something completely new each time, but there is enough here so that every replay of the level doesn't get tedious and repetitive. The level is also small and compact, making it very fast paced, and the combat is a welcome challenge, which never feels unfair as you're still given plenty of space to maneuver around within it. There really isn't all that much to this level. Once again, there is no contrasting themes to really invest you into this level from a visual standpoint, but it serves its purpose being a quick and pretty fun challenge to tackle. It's even got a unique hook with a randomly generated dungeon to set this realm apart from all the others. It's not really big enough in execution, but it knows what it needs to be and it lives up to its bare minimum requirements. Number 14 is the air realm. Pollution is all over the place here. The environmental message is very heavy-handed and it does pull you out of a level, as we play these games in the first place to escape the harsh realities of our own world by immersing ourselves into the world of Skylands, and instead here we are reminded of those same problems that we face on a day-to-day basis. It is an important message, however, so at least the game makes it hard to miss. In fact, it's even used for a little dread. Much like the Dark Realm, you can't see ahead of you, allowing fear of the unknown to settle in. In fact, this level has the best of both Dark and Undead realms, as this level also has a high degree of combat to challenge you with large and wide open arenas for your maneuverability. I hate how the pace gets set for you, as you have to wait for balloons to carry you to the next location. It's even more infuriating when you miss the jump and have to wait for the balloon all over again. It brings the pace into an absolute crawl and leaves you wanting to get back to the fast-paced action already, but it's still a level I enjoy replaying more so than the others on this list so far, and the enjoyability is a very important factor to a level's replayability, which is why I admire this level so much despite its flaws. Halfway through the ranking, I have Lost Imaginate Minds at number 13. For the last Skylanders level we'll ever play, this is rather anticlimactic, not to the same degree as Chaos's Lair, fortunately enough. Just as the boss gets interesting, it's cut short by a cutscene, which is pretty disappointing, but not to the same scale as the Dragon's Peak fiasco all over again. Because this time, the threat isn't built up throughout the entire level, so you're not ultimately let down by something that you're increasingly getting excited about the prospects over. It just kind of happens at the end because it has to, creating no sense of dread or excitement as you slowly but surely make your way toward the end for a legendary face-off. In fact, the most memorable and unique thing behind this level is Blobber's character arc throughout. It adds layers to this NPC, making him even more fun and entertaining to watch, as it's incredibly easy to root for Blobbers given the crap he's been through. The rest of the level has nothing visually to distinct it, because it just feels like scrap content from Cradle of Creation due to the visuals and architecture being the literal exact same thing. So this level doesn't stand out and it's left to simply be forgotten. It also uses the magnetic gimmick from Vault of the Ancients, but it's not exactly executed well to perfection here. So even then, with a unique mechanic, the level doesn't stand out as it has nothing unique and memorable to distinct itself from other better Skylanders levels. Really, there is no oomph to remember the level by. It's a shame the final level in Skylanders history has been chalked down to such a forgettable one. But for number 12, I have Thumpin' Wumpa Islands, a level that has a very fun name to say, and it also feels like a prideful Crash Bandicoot tribute, as you get the nostalgic feel you'd expect, as though this level has the right balance between traditional Crash Bandicoot level design and traditional Skylanders level design. It feels as though this is definitely the level that would be the perfect collaboration between the two essences. It also really invests you with the sense of rhythm you feel playing throughout it. Every move is on beat, so you can invest into the level with more than just the visuals, but the sound as well. It's very satisfying to figure out how the beat affects the level going through it, and soon enough it becomes instinct as you're accustomed to that beat. It all leads to a very creative boss fight with unique attack patterns and a unique way in which it's defeated, so that now the boss is very memorable as nothing else really compares to it. So because this is a jungle themed level, it doesn't really stand out. It's forgettable actually, because it's the same theme that has been done time and time again throughout the Skylanders franchise and even throughout the Crash Bandicoot franchise, so this level doesn't really do enough to distinguish itself, though it is still a fun challenge I really enjoy playing through. But coming in just short of the top 10 at number 11 is the Life Realm. After a lackluster Angry Birds wannabe Sheep Creek villain quest from Chompy Mountain, what the developers thought would be a good idea is taking this concept, adding nothing to it, and stretching it out for an entire level. This would be terrible if not for the fact that these sections are spread out. Instead, they provide a nice refreshing twist with a constant gameplay loop, so every new aspect of the level feels fresh in comparison to what came before it. The layout is also really satisfying as you see paths you need to get to, but you can't get past the path without finding the correct tools beforehand. So what will happen is you will find yourself in a satisfying looping level design which rewards every action you make, making the level always feel as though it's progressing because you loop back around to those original sections after having found the correct tools to destroy the path that blocks you ahead. This concept is simple and not very well fleshed out, but once again, that's because the level knows its purpose and it's fulfilling upon it perfectly, because it plays in a way that the level certainly doesn't have any high highs, but it's still brainless fun to keep you entertained for as long as the level is. In fact, it's a perfect length, because any longer and you'd be reminded just how simple the level truly is, and you'd lose admiration for the fun you're currently having. But now we're finally going to move on to the top 10 I alluded to earlier, and it's going to be kicked off by Shelmont Shores. This level does have some interesting ideas. The grind sections and lightning sections provide something different to freshen up the gameplay loop. The visuals give you something interesting as you're stuck inside a storm, so watching the lightning in the background is quite satisfying and very immersive. The level starts providing a tough combat challenge, so it acts as the perfect teaser for what's to come. The secrets are clever enough to still feel rewarding when you explore and find them. It's actually the trophy here which is the most rewarding of all, as you have to find all the bananas, which tend to be hidden better than the collectibles themselves. Each individual section isn't too long and never overstays its welcome. This is just yet another Imaginators level which only strives for the bare minimum. It doesn't give us anything that stands out, and it's pretty generic in the fact that all the activities here are stuff we've all already seen, but it's all just being meshed together sloppily. If this level could deliver more of those high highs, I could see it doing better on the list, but as it stands, it's getting number 10. Number 9 is going to be Dragon Temple. I hate how long and unskippable the cutscenes are that break up the pace and flow of this level. It's even more annoying as the length of these tutorials are absurd, as Spyro is too busy cracking terrible jokes rather than letting you get on with it. The unnecessary dialogue really pulls you out of the level, which has slightly more creativity poured into it than other levels, but that's about where my praises for this level begin and end. Because sure, it certainly is memorable, and the fact that you choose the pathways makes the playthrough itself feel unique to you, and you're truly interacting with the level, leaving an impact based on your personality as a player. Luckily, you still get all the objectives within 2 playthroughs if you're quick enough the second time round. It's not absurd like the Oracle where you need to play through the level at least 4 times, so it doesn't get repetitive and tedious. The puzzles in this level are easy and nothing to write home about. In fact, despite having a creative and visually stunning location, nothing else about it really stands out, so that's why Dragon Temple gets number 9 on this list. Plus there are also sheep enemies in this level, and I hate sheep enemies. I hate them so much! Number 8 is the Water Realm, yet another realm which knows its purpose and fulfills upon it perfectly. It's short, the little fountain puzzles are unique and memorable, everything feels fitting as it's in tune with the theme, and it's just a fun level. Whenever I'm looking for brainless fun where all I need to do is go from one combat section to another, this is the level I look toward. Plus, collectibles aren't really brainless, it takes some thinking to get to them, increasing how rewarding they are to find. Sure, this level isn't anything special, it's not going to be, which is why I find it so much fun and it's such a blast to play through. Number 7 is the Earth Realm. Same as the Water Realm, it's short and incredibly fun to explore. You mash attacks to make it through rocks, and it's never given the time to overstay its welcome and become monotonous, because it's also broken up by puzzles and side activities which break up the constant gameplay loop. The level is also quite memorable for its bizarre and frankly pretty random bridge lowering sequence. This has made both fun and unique, since we don't have to conduct some random and out of left field activities throughout the rest of the game. It's what makes this section stand out. Though, how good can a level be as a whole if the highlight is lowering a bridge? I suppose that's why the Earth Realm finds itself at number 7 on this ranking list. Number 6, and also my favourite elemental realm, is going to be the Fire Realm. Firstly, down to bias, as I love the fire element and they did it justice here. But it's also got some very well hidden collectibles which reward both your patience and exploration. This level also has the required contrast to be memorable on a visual scope, as you go around and blast ice everywhere, which is fun until the blast refuses to go where it is you intended to go. It will, instead, go from where you intend for it to go to the exact opposite side of the map. It is pretty infuriating, I must admit, and these platforming sections as a result are pretty tedious, but everything else is fast paced and keeps you engaged. It's exactly what I expect from the best elemental realm in the game. Once again, it's these 5 final levels in the ranking that I find to be truly exceptional. Each of these represent the best of what Imaginators has to offer in terms of visuals, individual storytelling behind each level, the design of each level, and overall how fun I find the levels to be. These 5 levels are a massive step up. They stand out amongst the rest of the levels throughout Imaginators, and as always, I wish they could all be number 1. Since that physically can't happen, instead at number 5 I have Cursed Tiki Temple, a really memorable level as the visuals are unique and its mechanics play unlike any other Skylanders level. The level was built up from nothing and the developers poured all the passion they had into making it investing and worthwhile to buy a Wildstorm for. I love how the level will introduce a mechanic, then it will expand upon that mechanic, making it feel intricate, how all these design elements come together to make a level which flows and has incredible fast pacing. It's also refreshing to see Cinder as our NPC guide throughout the level. Getting to interact with her for a change motivates you to keep playing further throughout the level. Number 4 is Sky Fortress. This level balances platforming, puzzle solving and challenging combat in a perfect manner, which is always engaging and fun. The combat has that extra layer of depth and strategy, as using timing and spacing, you can initiate Jetpack's attacks and cause extra damage to all enemies around you. Unfortunately, the level is quite compact and contained, meaning there isn't much hidden parts to explore, so collectibles aren't exactly the most fun to gather. Outside of that, it's a compelling theme to recapture Jetpack's battleship from a bunch of vultures, and the Wrecking Ball game is actually really fun and feels natural to control. I must applaud how this level never gets boring because the gameplay loop is constantly changed up and freshened upon, so something new and unique is always given to this level to remember it by. You don't see this Wrecking Ball mechanic in any other level. As such, it coming from this level helps the entire level stand out as a result. Number 3 is Scholarville. This level is similar to Sky Fortress in the fact that exploration isn't vast. It's a familiar level theme and it relies on freshening up gameplay mechanics to provide something different outside of combat that will keep you engaged. However, it stands above Sky Fortress and by extent every other level in this ranking thus far due to the creativity in the boss fights. This is the only level in the game with multiple boss fights, one of which is the only other boss fight in the base game not to be a Doomlander, the other being Chaos himself. That makes this level stand out that much more. I'm always excited to get to this section with a sea monster, knowing that this boss will bring a satisfying end to the level. It's a shame everything before this is so long-winded. These sections don't need to be nearly this long. They overextend their welcome and become tedious and slow-paced very quickly. If not for the creativity and freshness the Sea Monster brings to the constant gameplay loop, then this generic town level certainly would have dropped more than a couple of spots. But number 2 is going to be Abandoned Amusement Park, the second most creative level theme in the entire game. This truly feels like an abandoned amusement park and the visuals have style behind them, making it not only feel like an abandoned amusement park, but one that would truly exist within the Skylanders world. You also get funny announcements which add to the background lore and history behind the level, and they're pretty comedic as they act as proof as to why the amusement park has been abandoned in the first place. With all of these bad ideas being put into the amusement park, boy, it sure is no wonder how the place got shut down. The danger of this park builds tension, and you're hooked into the level immediately. It's such a fun level to traverse, with rewarding collectibles, unique visuals, and the combat is easily the toughest in the entire game. On higher difficulties, certain sections will take several minutes to complete. It makes the end of these sequences very rewarding, and you're kept on edge throughout the entire ordeal, making the level feel like an experience that you're enticed by throughout the entirety of a marathon, especially since you have more interactive points. You don't need to rely on Soli or Skarner in the moment. You can also look towards shockwaves that freeze enemies or just deal stun damage in general. I do admit the frosting sections do bring the level's pace into an absolute crawl, and they are incredibly tedious, but they lead to something incredible which makes it all the more rewarding. The scenery also belongs, and there is plenty of variety here because there are multiple rides and attractions, each unique from one another. This is truly one of Skylanders' greatest levels, but it still can't hold a candle to our number 1 level, Golden Arcade. This is set in an arcade where we're playing video games inside a video game. That concept is incredible, immersive, and very fun to explore. It's unlike any other, making this level stand out above the rest for its memorability and variety. It doesn't rely on combat, instead we get constant minigames which keep the gameplay from getting stale. It's a very fun level where nothing feels out of place and nothing drags the pacing down, because you're always moving, progress is always being made, and you're always being rewarded for it. It's all just such a satisfying experience that also gives you incredibly unique visuals that are stunning due to the blue and gold contrast, which really pops for an eye-pleasing treat. Sal is also a very charming NPC, which helps make the level all the more fun to traverse. I thoroughly enjoy every aspect of this level as it mashes together everything great about Imaginators into one neat package. But now, with all 25 levels of Skylanders Imaginators having been ranked, there is a massive disparity between the very bottom of the barrel when it comes to the garbage levels in this game compared to the top tier and engaging ones. And you'll see even more of that when I rank all 116 levels from worst to best on Sunday for the conclusion of Skylanders Week 2. I cannot, in good conscience, end off this video without first thanking all of my incredible channel members whose continued support help make these videos possible. Without them, these videos would be near impossible to make, so from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate every last one of them. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, there are plenty of options on screen now to explore, and please consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. On that note, this video is coming to an end, so thank you so much as always for watching. Until the next video arises, peace!